Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed will be here very, very soon, but the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. We are rejoined by very special guests, former Washington Redskin and 15-season player in the NFL, Mr. Lorenzo Alexander. How are you doing on this beautiful Monday evening, sir?
I'm doing great, fellas, man. I'm out here in Phoenix, Arizona, so it's starting to warm up. So I was just out in the backyard getting some stuff together. So I'm sweating a little bit, so I'm hot. But other than that, man, I'm good. Family's good. Everybody's healthy, happy, and thriving in my post-football days.
That's love to hear that, Lorenzo. And you sound like us on the job site today, out in the sun, just sweating our minds out. But that being said, speaking of being out in the sun, Eric Bieniemy has been hired here as the offensive coordinator, and he has really lit a fire under these guys and really taken Washington by the horns, so to speak. So kind of tell us about, have you heard anything about Eric Bieniemy, and what does the energy bring to a football team as a professional athlete that has to be invigorating?
Well, one thing that EB brings is a lot of credibility, obviously winning, and I think players respect that. I mean, he's been with the not if the best quarterback in the league currently, but future probably GOAT, right? When we think about Pat Mahomes, when we think about Eric, when we think about Coach Andy Reid, when we think about just all the athletes in the ton of talent that he's had around, he's been a part of that prolific offense. So he's going to garner a lot of respect just off jump. And talking to a few guys that have been around him in his system, they definitely have a lot of respect for him. But obviously he knows that he has to go out once again and kind of reclaim that respect once you walk into a locker room, right? That notoriety that I just mentioned, right, only goes so far. That gives you my ear initially, right? But then you have to follow that up, right? Or was that just Andy Reid, or is this EB, right? And you have to really come out on your own, define who you are as a head coach. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing for him is becoming his own man as far as a head coach. And I've been around a lot of first-time head coaches, and sometimes they struggle with that. And when we think about like the Belichick tree, for example, when you talk to a lot of their guys that have played for coaches that have went on to be head coaches, they really struggle with having their own identity. People feel like they're trying to be too much like Bill. So I think for EB, if he has brought over, which most head coaches do, they tend to bring over guys that have played for him before because they know the culture, they know the system, they know what he's about. Will he be able to separate himself from Andy Reid and be his own man? Of course, he's going to still feel like him because he was around him for so long, but can he stand on his own 2 feet and bring his own culture and own vibe when he's speaking to the men?
Right. For the last week or two out in the DMV area, the topic of discussion for the most part has been about Chase Young and him not coming to the involuntary workouts, and now they got the voluntary mini camp starting tomorrow. He's in the building now. But being a former player, do players in the locker room kind of, look at guys sideways when they don't show up to stuff like that? Or is that one of the things where it's kind of just he's doing his own thing, but he shows up to the voluntary stuff. Right. Just come out, handle your business on Sundays.
It really all depends on who you are and how you go about your work. And, from everything I know, Chase Young has earned the respect of his locker room. He's a grinder. He's a worker. And there's one thing to not be around, then there's another thing to not be around and then show up out of shape, right? And so as long as he looks the part, he's ready to go, guys aren't going to think two things about it. But if he comes in overweight, I've been around guys that come in overweight, out of shape, not ready to go, then you start looking at guys sideways. But because they know him, they're familiar with him, I think a lot of the guys will respect him for that. Because, at the end of the day, the OTAs, for the most part, you lifting weights and then you're going through some plays. I think the biggest thing is that coaches like to have eyes on you, and then they also like to have their leaders there to kind of help the younger guys. But player to player, man, as long as you show up ready to go, ready to work, and go help this team win, I don't care what you do.
And You have no. I would say I would laugh and say you probably don't have any experience of having teammates, big name teammates that come not in shape to work to camp. But Lorenzo, to kind of elaborate on that with Chase Young, Montez Sweat and him are both fighting for a contract. This is a big year for both of those pass rushers, and somebody like yourself who had to work into becoming an edge rusher and was one of the best that the league had to offer. What have you seen out of those two, and what do they need to do to reach that next level?
I mean, I really like them. You know, young guys got motors, got that grind to them. Obviously, you have to always continue to build your repertoire and evolve as a pass rusher in this league. That's why oftentimes you'll see young guys come on, you know, get 10, 12 sacks and then kind of fall off and then get right back on. And so those guys have to be able to evolve their game, be students of the game, understand how offensive linemen are going to attack them, and then be able to play that mental game, right? You only can, you know, run around and run over people so long. You have to have a good, you know, setup with your toolbox throughout a game to really win consistently over and over and over again, and have like longevity and success in this league.
Absolutely. And then obviously you played all over the football field. You were the special teams ace. You also were a linebacker, a D end. You really did whatever you could to get yourself on the field. So I want to talk about position flexibility. Is that something that you believe in is very important for a team?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think it's kind of the trend these days, right? You want to have wide receivers that can play outside, inside, running backs that can line up outside and also carry the rock, right? Tight ends that can block and then flex out. And then defensively, you want defensive linemen that can rush the pass, but also maybe cover, or linebackers that can cover and rush on third down, safeties that can obviously play deep, but then also maybe come down the slot. And the same thing with corners, inside and outside, and be able to evolve all over the place. There's no longer really that cookie cutter, you are this guy. I think coaches like football players because that gives them flexibility as far as dialing up schemes. And it also gives them GMs roster flexibility. Yep. And so for me, as a guy that could actually, you know, play defensive end, play outside linebacker, and also play inside linebacker, if maybe we were really heavy talent-wise at the receiver room or somewhere on offense, maybe they kept an extra guy, cut a linebacker or D-end because I gave them some flexibility. And so I think really it's more valued now. You know, I'm kind of ahead of my time. You know, sometimes you miss that market. But, you know, hey, I like to think of myself as a trendsetter. Maybe me and some other guys that were able to do the same thing kind of set that trend and showed the value of having a guy that can play multiple positions. Because when I first did it, I used to have coaches tell me, hey, you don't want to be all over the place, right? You don't want to be a jack of all trades and master of none, right? Where I used to say I was a jack of all trades and master of some, where I was a really good pass rusher and also play special teams at a high level. But I could do some other things to help the team as well. I think people are really starting to see the value that a guy like that can bring to a football team.
Yeah, and the title of this episode is called Zoe Knows, and obviously for good reason, like you just showed.
Yeah, like you said, definitely a guy that was ahead of your time. If you are in the league right now, I know for a fact Ron Rivera would probably be calling you because he loves position flex guys. But
True.
Speaking of this team, it's been not really a long time, but past couple of years, Washington's gone after like the vet quarterback route, trying to bring in guys that have been released or trade for guys and whatnot. They're finally going with a guy in Sam Howell, who they drafted in the 5th round in 2021 or 2022. And he's going into his second year, played one game. As a guy in the locker room that's like a veteran, what is it like going into a season with a young quarterback and with a quarterback that has question marks around him as far as like, is he going to be the guy or is he like, or not?
Yeah, it's really a lot of unknowns. You know, obviously it's a quarterback-driven league, and you know if you have a guy there, you have a chance. And so really for me, it just let us know as defensive players and really just people around the quarterback, we got to do our job at a high level to give this guy an opportunity to learn, grow, right, and overcome the adversity that he's going to face because it's the hardest position to play in professional sports. And so how can we do our job that's going to allow him to do his job better and help him, work his way through some of those low valleys that all quarterbacks go through and rookies do or young quarterbacks do more so than others. And so that was always my mindset and trying to get guys to galvanize around that, do your job, and we'll help him do his. But it's always going to be tough sledding if you have a young guy starting, unless he, you find lightning in the bottle like we did with RG3, or you see like some of these other quarterbacks are able to get success early in their careers. But it's really hard. And that's why it's only a few elite guys in the league. And, the top 15 are really good. And then it's a significant drop off once you start getting to that back half of the league.
Yeah, and too bad that we've been in that back half for far too long, Lorenzo, and hopefully we get out of that. But to wrap this up, I only have a couple more questions for you. I want to talk about Washington's draft class, not maybe all of it together, but the first-round pick, Emmanuel Forbes at 16, a lot has been talked about his weight, but this is a guy who played in the SEC, went against some of the best the NFL wide receivers have to offer. What is your concerns with his weight and his draft pick? Do you like Emmanuel Forbes?
Well, I haven't had a lot of chance to obviously watch him. I'm not a big college guy. I like to just analyze the football on the NFL level once you get there. And so obviously I'll look at him as I go, around the league and really watch him this year and have my ear to the ground at once training camp opens and we really start playing some real football. But anytime where there's an issue around weight, right? Back in the day when I came in, it was this thought process is bigger is better, right? And what I found, I was overweight, right? When I got in the league, I was 315 and then I got down to 235. But I used to always pull my hamstring, have hip flexors, muscle tightness, soreness. And it's really not a weight issue, it's about an efficiency issue. And sometimes guys aren't built to carry 5 or 10 extra pounds. And sometimes it's better to be lean and be functionally strong and get rid of some of that bad week because it's a longevity standpoint. I mean, one thing that every team, every guy has to get through is a war of attrition. And the more fit and efficient that you are, it allows you to play or be available for 16 weeks into the playoffs, I guess 17 weeks now into the playoffs. And that is the biggest superpower that anybody could have is availability, because you could be all world if you constantly hurt. And there's several guys like that we know about. When it gets to the crunch time, you can't count on them because they're beat up for one reason or another.
And Lorenzo, let's talk about this season. What is one statistical category or just one football thing on the field that Washington has to get better at if they want more success than they've had the previous years?
Wow. I think there's a lot of things that can go on there as far as winning football. But I think just being consistent. When I've watched them over the course of the years, it's a lack of consistency from top down. And what I mean by that is that it seems like it's a different player every other play or every other game that's not consistently playing at a high level. And so it doesn't matter, what you do. If you have a guy messing up every other play, you're going to find yourself playing behind the sticks a lot, playing behind the 8 ball. So whether it's pre-snap penalties, not converting on third down, not putting yourself in third and short because somebody maybe dropped the ball. And so I think from top down, they have to get more consistent, more professional, and more disciplined, and so that they can go out there and put themselves in a position to win and put the pressure of playing, of executing at a high level and put that on the other team where they have to match that. Because oftentimes, like when New England was rolling, they weren't just whooping you like physically, they were just out executing you and putting you in these pressure cookers and people would just fall apart and they would capitalize on your mistakes. And so that's ultimately the way you want to win football. It's playing good, sound, physical football, but it all starts with discipline and executing at a high level from the top to the bottom.
I totally agree. Well, we need more consistency all the way through this organization. I wholeheartedly agree with you. This isn't my last question, but did you see Fred Smoot's reaction to Emmanuel Forbes being selected, Lorenzo?
No, but I'm pretty sure it was hilarious. Smoot is one of a kind, man. I played with Smoot for several years, so I got nothing but the respect for him, but I know he's a funny dude.
Lorenzo, there was 100 people in that room. Nobody was looking at him, and he was screaming his head off, and nobody was even looking at him, just cheering by himself, enjoying it, doing as Fred Smoot usually does. But my last question that I have for you, Lorenzo, it's kind of a toss-up one here, but Daron Payne just got extended long-term with Jonathan Allen. Yeah. Talk about those two, that defensive line, and what they kind of do for this defense as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, they're engines. I mean, and this is where I started. I was a D tackle. And so that's really the heart and soul of everything that happens on the football field. They impact the edge rushers, right? They don't allow the quarterback to step up so those edge guys can get there. They hold the guards off, the linebackers off the ball linebackers, so those guys can run through and be free on run plays. And they push the pocket and not allow the quarterback to step up and have like a free reign as far as DB, so maybe they're a little bit inaccurate to allow a DB to recover, get his hand on the ball, and then what we like to say is get tippers and overthrows. Got to get those right. We're getting their big paws up. So those two guys are dominant players. I have a lot of respect for them, how they play the run as well as the pass, and you got to pay those type of guys because they impact the game so much. You may not be able to see it as a fan, but if you turn on that all 22 and get to see that end zone copy and get to see how they're throwing guys around, impacting the run, impacting the pass game, you only can realize that you got to pay those type of guys.
Yeah, and almost 19 sacks between the two of them and over 40 tackle for losses last season. Obviously, Daron Payne was working for a payday. Hopefully, that blends over to Montez Sweat and Chase Young this season. Lorenzo, I can't thank you enough for taking some time out for us and being able to come on here and just talk about the Washington Commanders. I really do appreciate it. I know that they're facing the Cardinals week 1. I hope that you do come and watch that game at FedEx so we can see two of your ex-teams going against each other.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get out there. That's that game, and I think the Bills come there as well. So there's a couple of games on the schedule that hopefully I'll have a shot to get out to, if not one, the other, if not both.
Yeah, I know Logan, Santana, and Fred would love to see you again, brother. I'm sure they would. Lorenzo, I can't thank you enough, brother. You have a good night.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Lorenzo. All right, everybody, we just spoke with the man, Mr. Lorenzo Alexander. That is so awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Great.
Every time he's on, it's always a good time. Like you said, he's not like a deep dive analysis guy, but just the overall football knowledge of a guy that grinded it out for 15 years in the league. Always respect guys' knowledge on the game like that.
Yeah, I know. And the funny thing is, he said he missed the trend. And I was like, dude, you played 15 years, though. I mean,
right.
Some guys would kill to play 15 years, you know?
Exactly.
Just to
like you said, he kind of started that trend, like the Swiss Army knife, like you said, just jack of all trades or master of none. Yeah, I don't remember what he said. Something.
Yeah, you got Jack on the mind. That's when things start going awry. And speaking of, did you see the latest news? The Colts have an unnamed player. He's not a star per se, but it's an unnamed player who's possibly going to face suspension or some sort of penalty against him for betting for the Colts. And they're even saying that he was betting on the Colts. This player.
He was betting on Colts. He was betting inside the facility on the Colts. Like, you got to be all time just dumb at this point, honestly, to kind of do something like that. Like,
yeah, you got to be like Reed dumb to do something like that. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Jim Irsay.
Right.
Jim Irsay's the unnamed player because they said he wasn't a star, but the fans would know him. Probably Jim Irsay. No, but he does deserve it, though, with all the talking that he's done. But before we are joined by your next guest, I did want to ask this question to you. This is from the Colonel Hall. He said on Sunday, Kyle led an interesting discussion on the Bunker podcast. Please elaborate on your offensive line discussion, specifically with your expectations of Nick Gates and Stromberg. So if you want to talk about because my big thing was, it's weird.
I was going to say, I don't even know what you said.
They're weird. It's weird to me that they're saying Stromberg is a developmental guy at the center position because this is the best SEC lineman rated last season by College Football. Coming in as an SEC starter for multiple years. It's not like he's coming in with a deer in headlights, so to speak. So it was weird that they're saying he's developmental because, in my opinion, he's going to be playing this year. He's going to be starting. And my big question was, are they playing this for a fiddle? And that way when week 1 comes around, Stromberg's going to be starting and Nick Gates is going to be at left guard. Because I find it very hard to believe that Stromberg is the developmental piece because he should be getting his ass whooped by John Allen and Daron Payne. I mean, my goodness.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of weird, especially because if you look at the track record of the third-round picks since Ron Rivera's got here, they're usually guys that, if not on the field week 1, they're getting on the field at some point early on or middle of the season and contributing. So, yeah, I mean, I think that maybe they're just trying to, like, temper expectations and not really try to put too much on them to be like, hey, even though we just drafted you, like, we want you to be the guy coming in early. And as we know, like, centers, especially with a young quarterback, centers there to, like, take a lot of pressure off the young quarterback, like the pre-snap stuff, calling out stuff. So
blocking
maybe they're saying
developments. You're right.
Exactly, blocking assignments. So I'm thinking maybe they're saying developmental because you got to get that type of stuff down first and before you can get on the field, as opposed to a guy like Nick Gates, who's a veteran. He's been in the league for a couple of years. He can kind of pick that stuff up a little bit faster than maybe a rookie can. So, but like to your point, I do think that at some point this season he'll either be the starting center or get some center work or maybe somewhere else on the offensive line.
Yeah, and now we are joined by our next guest, and luckily I wore a hat for this episode, and then there would be 3 shiny bald heads here sitting here. But now we are joined by our next guest, Mr. Lake Lewis, the CEO of Sports Journey. How are you doing tonight, brother?
Hey, how you guys doing? Long time no see.
Yes, sir. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, Lake, and I want to. Tomorrow starts with the mandatory mini camp for the players. We've seen that Chase Young is in attendance. He was there at Media Day today. But kind of talk to me about Chase Young and his expectations. Are there going to be unfair expectations for him in this mini camp altogether, just how they're going to be looking at him?
I mean, I don't think so. I think, everyone remembers what kind of player he was at Ohio State and obviously what he was his rookie year. He was NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. So I think a lot of people are just waiting to see if he can get back to that form or continue to progress, because we saw him before he had his knee injury. He was struggling a little bit, so there's going to be questions about, has he bettered his game with technique and things of that nature. So these are fair questions, and these are fair questions, especially for a player that didn't get his contract extended, so to speak, the 5th-year option. So he's got to prove it out on the field.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of proving it on the field, Chase Young and Montez Sweat are 2 guys that are looking for long-term deals. Who do you think is going to have the bigger year coming in to try to get the bag, per se?
I mean, that's a tough question, man. I mean,
Putting Lake on the spot.
Yeah, well, I mean, guys have really good years because I think they feed off each other. I think, if you can get pressure off one side of the field and kind of demand some more attention over there, frees things up for John Allen, Deron Payne. And then naturally, if it's Chase on one side doing well, Montez is naturally going to eat on the other side regardless. So it's hard for me to answer that, guys. I mean, I do I have a favorite or over the other? Not really. I just want both of them to be successful so they can keep that group intact.
Absolutely. And Lake, everyone has kind of been talking about Sam Howell. And look, it's OTAs. I get it. It's early on. But what have you heard about Sam Howell? Are you drinking the Kool-Aid all? Because obviously here in Washington, it's hard for us to buy in because of how everything usually goes. Usually at one point in time in the past 5 years, there's probably been one of us, all of us, that has been caught in saying that somebody's going to be really good and it goes downhill with the quarterback position. Talk to me about Sam Howell. Are you buying in?
Yeah, I am. And I think this will be a little different. Is he going to be a franchise quarterback? Well, you can't answer that. I mean, you can't say about the number 1 draft pick, and Bryce Young. Right. You don't know. But the goal is for him to be successful. And I think Sam Howell has everything around him to be successful. I think that offensive line wasn't as bad as they appeared to be last year. I think some of the play calling was terrible. And I also think that you had quarterbacks that had their limits, And I think if you look at what Sam Howell can do, as far as his arm strength, as far as, him being able to be slight of foot, I actually think Sam Howell's a combination of both Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke. So, we saw when Taylor was on the field, he did things clearly better than Carson at some point. But then you saw Carson's arm was much more stronger than, Taylor Heineke's. Well, I think Sam Howell's a combination of both these guys. And just talking with people that go back to Carolina with him, that they're like, this guy's a leader. Guys like him. They like playing with him. They like playing for him. They know he's going to get them the ball. So I just think that he has a chance to really come in here and catch a lot of people off guard, because outside of DC, no one's expecting much from Sam Howell.
Nope.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, like you said, the national people they were pushing Lamar Jackson to DC just because they were like, you're really starting a 5th-round pick? Like, what is Washington doing? But like you said, I think that they've seen some things that they can build on, and maybe he can be successful.
Why not Washington, bro?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're a Penn State guy.
Uh-huh.
One of his Sam Howell's weapons is alumni of Penn State. Jahan Dotson had 7 touchdowns last year. Got injured. I think he would have had a little bit better numbers had he not got injured, and the quarterback play was a little bit better. What are you expecting from him in year 2 coming out there with opposite Terry?
Oh, man, this guy could have a huge impact. I mean, he had an impact last year. And as you said, he still led was in, top 5 in a lot of rookie wide receiver categories, and that's despite missing 5 games. So you do think if he played a full season, what those numbers would have looked like, and they probably could have won maybe two more games just from him being out on the field and teams not being able to double team Terry. So I think, when you look at where he is now, this is the second year. This is where guys really take a leap, where they get better. So I think for him in an Eric Bieniemy offense where you don't know who's going to get the ball on any given Sunday in Eric Bieniemy's system. I mean, you go back to Kansas City, obviously we knew Travis Kelce was going to touch the ball a lot. But if you look at the other receivers, especially this year, with the fact that the Cheetah was gone, so I think if you look at those numbers, it was by committee, man, and I think if you're Washington, you should feel pretty good about that, because now you have Dotson, teams know about him, but then you still have Curtis Samuel. So, there's a lot of guys out there that can open it up, but I think Jahan's a big play guy. You don't know how fast he is. I remember telling you guys before the draft, the guy's fast, but he's quick as well. And my grade with him was he reminded me of a young Odell Beckham, just as far as his big play capability. And we saw that. Remember the New York game, the spin move and all those things. I mean, the guy can track the ball with the best of them in the air. So, yeah, I'm expecting a big season for him, maybe 60, north of 60 receptions.
Absolutely. And just as long as he avoids the kicking net, I'm good with that comparison. And Hall saved you, Lake, because I had a wide receiver question. It's a hard one, so I'm going to save that for a little bit. Just get ready for it. But my next question for you, Cameron Curl cut off his dreads today, and this is a big year for Cameron Curl, just like Chase Young and Montez Sweat. It's a contract year for him. What are your expectations for Cam Curl and this defense? Because they were top 10 last year, they still want to get better. What are your expectations for them?
Well, I mean, my first expectation for Cam is to just stay healthy, and obviously that's not something that no one wants to be injured. So it's not like he's walking out hitting. But yeah, I'd like for him to, if he can make it through a full season, the guy could have a Pro Bowl under his belt. He's that talented. He's a smart player. Doesn't cause a lot of turnovers, but the guy next to him and Derek Forrest can do that, and hopefully Forbes, who they drafted, can do that on the outside. But if you just look at Cam Curl and you look at smart football players that are around the football at all times, he's a really solid tackler. I think he's a guy that doesn't get enough credit for covering tight ends and things like that, but he can do it all. And again, if he stays healthy, this defense, I mean, they're a top 5 unit waiting to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Outside of the quarterback position, obviously, like the quarterback is successful. More than likely, the team's going to be successful. But outside of that, the quarterback, what's something that Washington is going to need to do this year to be successful, to have a successful year?
I think they're going to have to get their tight ends involved. And I feel about Eric Bieniemy's offense because naturally he has, one of the maybe top 2 or 3 greatest tight ends ever in his system, and Travis Kelce. But I think if the Logan Thomases of the world, John Bates, and I also tell people Cole Turner is really a talent, and if they can tap into that, he could be a special football player. And then the other kid, now I'm going Brandon, who was on the practice squad last year. Curtis Hodges, 6'7" guy. I mean, you've got size, you've got height, and he's stronger now. So, I mean, you never know. Obviously, we know Amani Rodgers is out, but maybe this is a place for Curtis Hodges to step in there and perhaps be the 4th tight end. So I like the unit. I've always said I wasn't big on them drafting tight end. I didn't think they needed to go out and spend a lot of money on a free agent because I think those tight ends in the room are adequate. They all do something really well. But if you can put it all together, you can get maybe a whole out of a sum of that. So I like what they have.
Absolutely. And music to my ears as the number one fan of the Cole Turner fan club. Absolutely love it as the leader of it. To wrap this up, Blake, I only have a couple more questions for you. I want to talk about the running back room. Last season in 12 games, Brian Robinson almost had 800 rushing yards. Antonio Gibson over 500 rushing yards with less attempts on the ground. Eric Bieniemy being added in here as a former running back. How do you think that the carries are going to be divvied up? Do you expect the same?
I think it's going to go also by hot hand. That's the one thing I do like about Eric Bieniemy, and that's his track record. Whoever's eating in that game is going to be fed. And there's no reason to stop that until a defense stops that. Far often we saw last year Brian Robinson come out, play well first half, and didn't get touches in the second half. That won't happen this year. If he's playing well, he's going to get touches throughout the game. If it's Antonio Gibson, he's going to get touches. If it's Jonathan Williams, whoever it is, they're going to get the touches that they need. So remember, Eric Bieniemy told us, sat right in front of me at that press conference and said, literally, that he's not a numbers guy. He doesn't care about people's numbers. And he said, if you win and you're playing well as a unit, everyone's numbers are going to be there regardless. So I do think that Brian Robinson's going to get a good workload to start, because naturally that's how you break in a new quarterback. You don't want to overload him, have him throwing the ball 35, 40 times a game. If that's the case, you're probably losing a game. So I think you are going to see Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson. Between them, I don't see any reason why they won't get 25 touches collectively. You look at Kansas City's offense, we all know about how great Patrick Mahomes is, but they ran the football and they were a full offense. So this isn't a finesse coordinator coming in here. He's going to feed these horses back there, and if they produce, they're going to get their touches.
I totally agree. Next one I have for you, this is the hard one I told you about. Of the three wide receivers, meaning Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, or Curtis Samuel, who is most likely to have a down year compared to their season last year?
It's got to be Curtis Samuel, and it's not because he's not a good player. It's by default. I mean, it's literally because Jahan Dotson, we just talked about it. We expect for him to elevate and have a really great second year. And Terry McLaurin, what can you say? He's a top 10 wide receiver. Yes, he is a top 10 wide receiver, probably a little higher than that. But now you're going to see it, because he may have a guy that can get the ball to him all over the field. You'll see how special that guy really is. So, yeah, to me, it probably will be Curtis Samuel, but it won't be by much, though.
I agree with you, and I hope that is the case. Last question I have. I know I got to prick you a little bit for this, Lake. You got any ownership updates?
I mean, it's going to go through.
Okay.
Excuse me. There's no reason for it not to go through. I think the league wants it to go through. They don't have any problems with these guys per se. It's just, part of the process that they haven't matched yet. They haven't met. And from what I'm told, and I try not to spew stuff, but from what I'm told is a lot of this is about a stadium. So, you get the stadium rights and a new potential location. I would not be surprised if somehow, some way, as the ownership groups announced, it's also announced where a stadium might be being built. So, just hang on. But these are the guys. I think it would be foolish of everyone involved to now, whet everyone's appetite and then pull the plate off the table. That would be silly. And at the end of the day, these are sports owners. These are guys that have equity and ownership in other sports franchises that are winning, by the way, playoff caliber organization. So why not bring them here?
Now, do you think it's more based on the funding for a new stadium rather than it being a choice of where the stadium is going to go?
I think everyone knows that a new stadium is going to be north of $2.5 billion. That's just how much these stadiums are costing. And if you're, going to be the most lucrative franchise in American sports, you want to be the team with the best stadium in Americans. And I think the fan base here wants that. I actually did a poll the weekend about where would you want the stadium to be, and it was overwhelming. It was 71% said DC. You just have to find the land in DC, because obviously the natural location for most of us would be build at RFK, build around it until you have what you need. But there might be some sticklers as far as the area. The people there may not want a stadium. I always say, though, money and property value raising will allow people to change their mind.
Totally agree. We just need to hit up Elon and get a floating stadium over here. That's what we want. Lake, I can't thank you enough for joining us, brother. I know you're very, very busy and do very well with everything you do. I really do appreciate everything you provided for us tonight, sir. Hope you have a good evening. Until next time.
All right, you guys take care. Great being on with you as always.
Thank you, Lake.
Yes,
sir.
Appreciate you.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Lake Lewis, the smooth Lake. Smooth.
Yes, sir.
That
Smooth criminal.
The ownership news is good to hear. It's not very surprising, but we just wanted to make sure, because you never know what's going on, and this process has been slowing down a little bit. Just want to, get a pulse on the situation.
I will say that little nugget that he dropped about like what he's hearing about like some of it might be like as far as like the stadium rights and all that good stuff, and he wouldn't be surprised if a possible location or a destination for the stadium is going to be announced whenever the group is announced. So music to my ears with that stuff, because obviously, like you said, the ownership thing and the stadium thing, I'm so over talking about that. I just want it to be done with and talked about and moved on.
Come on, man. You want to talk about suits anymore? But speaking of suits, let's move on to our fan questions, brother. And this is in the Discord chat server from our guy, Mr. Tim Towner. He asks all, Philly arguably made the Super Bowl in 2022 because of the free agency signings in the trade for A.J. Brown. What is the one team you see this year that is one player away? And what player would you sign or trade for to try and put your team over the top? Any team.
Ooh, that's a good one. One player away team. I'll say it is I'll say the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that obviously they have the quarterback, they have the weapons on the offense. The offensive line has been a work in progress since Joe Burrow's gotten there, but obviously he's that good that he makes it work even with mediocre lines and guys getting injured a lot. And I just think that with them losing Jesse Bates on the back end, who's obviously an all-pro safety, one of the best in the league, you're going to need a guy, especially with the Bills. They got Dawson Knox. They just drafted Dalton Kincaid. You got the Chiefs, obviously, with Travis Kelce and Pat Mahomes getting the ball out to all those wide receivers they got out there. You're going to need a guy on the back end that's going to be able to defend the pass, defend against the good tight ends, and cover the middle of the field. And I think that with them losing Jesse Bates to Atlanta, they might lose a little bit on the back end on the defensive side. So if they could trade for a guy like Tyrann Mathieu from the Saints, if they get a guy like him on the back end, he brings the leadership of obviously a veteran guy. And I feel like if they got him on the defensive side of the ball, that could put them over the top against a team like the Chiefs or the Bills.
They got Cam Curl. They're good, man. But I respect your opinion. What is one team?
I said the Saints. I said Tyrann Mathieu. I didn't say Cam Curl.
I know. I'm talking about that he plays the same position as Cam. That's all I'm saying.
Who?
Tyrann Mathieu.
No, I was saying the Bengals, not us.
Oh, I'm tripping, dude. Whatever. I know what you're saying now. I don't know why I'm tripping. Sorry, Tim. Didn't you pay attention to your question? The reason for that is because I'm thinking in my head that Washington is one player away.
Well, I was gonna go the Washington route, but he said any team, so I was like,
I know. You did the political right thing. I'm gonna do the Homer thing like usual because I am Homer Simpson. But that being said, it is the Commanders who are one player away, and the one player that I would trade for is Jackson Carman. You bring him in here, we're going to the Super Bowl. I guarantee it, Tim. I can't go along with the bit anymore. That was a great question, Tim. Now, the next question from Tim Towner Hall. You're a first-round pick and just signed a multi-million-dollar contract that is fully guaranteed. What are you going to do first?
Oh, that's a good one. Probably, just the normal generic, like what everyone does. Go get their mom like a new house, like move them. Like I'll probably ask my mom, where would you like to live at, Mom? Pick a state, pick a place. Okay, well, I'll get you a house there. And yeah, that would probably be the first thing I'd do.
For me, like my mom and I, we used to like my mom was like always avid into exercising. So when we were kids, she was always forcing us to go on runs with her. She'd do anything like entice us, like I'll let you go on your rollerblades, type stuff. And so this one house that we lived in Gaithersburg that we lived by, she would always say was very pretty. And I told her when I was a kid I'd buy it for her. So if I were to get that kind of contract, I would be going to buy it because I told her I would. And so it's always in the back of my mind. I don't have enough money yet, but maybe one day I'll be able to supply her that house. But that's a great question, Tim, because I'm sure a lot of people would agree. My wife obviously deserves it as well, but there's a lot of people that deserve it. But just because it was like a past thing that I promised and I got to hold true to it, you know what I'm saying? Now, the next question in the Discord is from Jeff Miles. Anybody else worried about the lack of attention and urgency focused on our trainers' ability to keep our players healthy and safe? Year after year, changes are never talked about, and year after year, we're one of the most injured teams in the league.
Yeah, I would say a lot of teams like when they get injured, like the injury, like people talk about the injury bug and whatnot. It just kind of seems like the Chargers and I guess technically you could say us, but like if you go back to even like 2020, we weren't really that injured, which was a COVID year, which is like crazy. And but so I just think that, and they just brought back one of the trainers that got like swept up in the whole like Ryan
Vermillion
what's his
thing.
last name Vermillion thing, and he was cleared, proven innocent, had no wrongdoing, didn't know anything, and
Ryan
so
El Chapo Vermillion.
yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
So they brought him back, and he's like a really respected trainer around the league and in the building, and was really good at his job. So hopefully, with bringing him back and adding to the staff even more, it's gonna get a little bit better. But I look at injuries as kind of like a good luck versus bad luck type of thing. Like some teams got good luck. Look at the Eagles last year; they had good luck with injuries, like barely any injuries or any major injuries, any long-term injuries. And then you look like a team like San Francisco, battle injuries every single year, multiple players. So it just comes down to good luck and bad luck with maybe injuries.
Yeah, it's hard, Jeff, because I understand what you're saying because it's constantly a big concern for us. Like when we do have them, they seem to like the old term when it rains it pours, right? And that's how it kind of is with these injuries, and they're at catastrophic situations where like you're not at your best at, but it's at the situations where you're in an emergency style, and that can't keep happening. I do think it is a style of philosophy. I do think what Eric Bieniemy is doing by running 90% pass plays is forcing these guys to do a lot of cardio because the collective bargaining agreement has made things tighter, more strict on the team and being able to exercise these guys, work them out, giving them more time off. And so it's harder to be able to get those out of those guys. And maybe that has been an issue here in Washington because we don't have the most up to date in science and everything for working out for these guys.
Yeah, that is good. That's a good point. I didn't think about like the whole facilities aspect of it and whatnot, like putting money into facilities and
Right.
nutrition and all that. Like I would say that definitely plays a part in it. But new ownership coming in, they're going to spend a little bit of money apparently. So hopefully that'll change as well.
Yep. And now this next question is from Twitter. Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi! Thank you,
Oi.
Scott. Question for the pod. What is your best training camp / OTA moment that's got you either hyped or pissed?
Like recently or just like ever?
Ever.
I was pretty hyped when what was it, last year we went to OTAs?
Yeah, it was last year.
Yeah, I was pretty hyped last year whenever I got it right here actually somewhere. It's behind me. Whenever I got Ron Rivera's signature, just because I'm not like a big signatures person, but I just feel like a guy
Yeah,
that's like,
that day you were.
oh yeah, and I got my man. I
Ron
had to get
Rivera. Ron Rivera.
Ron, please pick me, Ron. No, and I got Jahan's autograph too because that's my guy. Had his jersey and everything like that. So I would say that I was something I was excited about last year. As far as got me pissed,
It doesn't have to be. It's not one or the other. It's just something
oh,
that either
all right,
gets
well,
you
yeah,
hyped
yeah.
or pissed. For me, it's the time that Jesse saw Bigfoot at training camp. You know, talking about how it was like Jurassic Park for him. He was the guy in the stall shaking, and the T-Rex is above him. He just gets swallowed up whole. He's trying to get home. He's getting chased in the Jeep. Jesse's just trying to enjoy his life, and Bigfoot just chasing him down. That by
Close
far,
second. Close second is Montez Sweat calling Mike Reed the Feds.
Yeah. Well, Reed is the Fed. Just look at him.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, imagine Montez Sweat seeing a guy like Mike Reed out and about. Like,
Right.
I don't trust that dude. Like I wouldn't either.
I like to have
Montez.
one marijuana, sir.
I get 2/8. All right. And this next question is from 800 Blue. Where does Quan Martin fit in this defense? Slot, Buffalo nickel, or safety? Thank you, 800 Blue.
I think you're right with all three. I think like we talked about with Lorenzo Alexander, the position flex thing, and that's like the new trend in the NFL, especially with Ron. He loves position flex guys. And if you go back to Illinois and look at the tape, one of the things that made Quan Martin what?
Illinois. It's just funny when.
Oh, Illinois. Yeah, I always say Illinois. But if you go back to Illinois, and look at the tape, one of the things that made him so highly talked about and highly touted was his versatility playing safety, free safety, playing the outside, inside. So I think that specifically they're going to try to put him at corner or at a slot corner, but I do think that we'll see him all over the field, kind of like a position flex type of thing.
Where does Quan Martin fit in this defense? In slot, buffalo, nickel, safety? I would say all of the above, 800 blue. The one cool thing about Quan Martin, and he's like kind of the silent assassin in a way, where Devin Witherspoon got a lot of the talk, and well worth it and deserved with his play that he did at Illinois. But the entire secondary was just stout, dude. They were legit. And getting him, who was somebody that was like in the middle, but also was at the top, and then in an emergency situation was used on the outside. The cool thing about that isn't that he was just productive in those settings, but he also tested out well at the combine. 11-1 broad jump, the explosion, the athleticism, the speed, it's all out there. And so that being said, I think that Quan Martin can help you anywhere on this defense. And like we saw last year, without Cam Curl in this lineup, we were kind of confused as to what they were going to do defensively to stop the bleeding. And somebody like Quan Martin, who could easily do that, and we talked about it so many times, it's hard to replace Cam Curl because of everything that he does. Somebody like Quan Martin certainly has the tools that possesses that could do that and fill in. For Cam, not obviously not as well, him being 6'2", kind of being that bigger body, easier in the box, but they still are very similar type of player. It's a great question, Blue. Next question from Hercules, former guest. Thanks, Herc. Can you guys defend why Washington is a top 5 tailgate experience?
I would just say, the fans, obviously the camaraderie of the fans, just everyone, there's never any like bad vibes out in the tailgate. It's always good time, good vibes. People are always willing, hey, come over to my tent. I got some beer, I got some food. Like, don't even ask me. I just think that when you got a team like us and you go inside the stadium and just like everything just goes downhill and fails, you got to have a top 5 outside the stadium experience, and I think that's why.
Yeah, and I think Washington is a very special fan base because with having hope ripped away from you for so many times, it's hard to get excited about things and to stay loyal to it, but they find ways to. One reason I'll say that Washington is a top 5 tailgating experience is because it doesn't matter who you are. You could be a Raiders fan, you could be a Cowboys fan, a Giants fan. If you kind of know the way of the social media here, you could come in and you could come tailgate with anybody. You know, you could come to the Red Zone lot. You could come hang out with the hog farmers. Or you could pay $20 to go to Tailgate Ted's to have his food. It doesn't matter. Like, you have those options available to you. And people might not know about it. But that's one of the reasons why this team is so special with the fan base. Because we are so welcoming and we are so open. It's not like Philly or those other areas. But it's like we're much more open to everybody, and we always have things to do. And once you get in there, you find your people. It really is a fantastic experience. And I think that the people is the reason why it's a top 5 tailgating experience, more so than anything else. It's not because of the parking lot. It's not because of the hours that they allow.
It's definitely not because of the parking lot.
Right. So it's because of the people, man, to be straight up honest with you. Now, next question that we have is from Scott Hartley. What are you most looking forward to this season? Oh.
I am looking forward to, hopefully, a actual resemblance of an NFL offense. We've just been so bad on offense, basically over the past since Kirk Cousins left. We haven't been like top half of the league since then. And I'm just looking forward to more points, more offense, and just a good time at the games. Because we're scoring points, even win, lose, or draw. If we're scoring points, I'll be mad if we lose, obviously. But, like, if the offense is humming and doing well, I could only be so mad at that point, you know?
I'm most looking forward to hanging out with the UK guys again, having them come into town. That was such an awesome weekend, like going out in D.C. and just playing pool with them for the night. And then the stadium experience, being able to walk the stadium with them, FedEx. And then, obviously, the game itself, tailgating with them. Afterwards, celebrating it, because how many times have we showed up to games and it being a loss, and we kind of have those conversations in the parking lot where this was different. It was like the exciting win, right? And regardless, the fact that we're actually sitting with them this year and then going to be able to enjoy the game in section 305. I hope you all come out and join us, because it's going to be the most loud section in the stadium come week 1. I guarantee you that. We'd love for you guys to come over and join us and make it loud. You know what I'm saying? But that's what I'm most looking forward to.
You remember after the game, we were just like, dog, Carson threw 4 touchdowns. Like, Dotson was balling, Terry, Gibson. Like, offense is about to be straight this year. And it was, like, literally the complete opposite of that.
Crazy how that stuff goes, man. But it is what it is. Now, this next question is from Coach Greg Curl. Thank you, sir. I really do appreciate it.
Coach.
His question is, Hall, is this a get it done or get gone year for this staff with the new ownership?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think that obviously if they don't get the job done, they don't make the playoffs. I don't think like technically you like have to win a playoff game because like you can win 11 games or you can go 11-6 and then lose. I don't know if we'd be the first round, second round, whatever it might be. Lose your first playoff game. Would that be a failure of a season or would it be a successful season? You know, so I think that, and obviously if we go 11-6, more than likely it's because the offense has elevated the team and the defense is playing up to what we know they can be. So, yeah, I just think that it's definitely a get it done or get gone season as far as you got to make the playoffs and at least be competitive in the playoff game for them to not be gone next year.
And this is the NFL, right, Coach Curl? So, yeah, I would imagine that this is because they've had a couple years, to get everything acclimated, get ready. And Coach put his own expectations on, and obviously that was used against him. But I truly feel that this is the expectation for this year. Going into this offseason, Coach Rivera said for the first time we feel like we're ahead of our roster to where we could actually draft based purely on player and how good they are. And that kind of tells you about their confidence level. Am I going to say that they have to win the Super Bowl to keep their job? I'm not sure about that. But I will say that they'll walk away on their own fruition. But I think that Josh Harris and company, being DC natives, they understand this area. They understand how everything looks, and they know what they had to go through. And I think that more respect is going to be given than most think. So I do think it is a get-it-done year or get gone, unfortunately. But it's the NFL. There's a lot of guys who come into this league or good coaches that don't get it done, they get fired, man. It's just, it is what it is.
I was going to say, to your point, I mean, most coaches in the league at this point in this day and age in the league, if by year 2, year 3, or I say by year 3, if you haven't got it done or you're not seeing results, most guys are going to get moved on from after year 3 anyway. So it's year 4, going into year 4. And obviously I do think that if there wasn't going to be an ownership change on all that stuff, they probably would be a whole new staff here this year just because of the way the season ended last year. But the beauty of it is you get a rebuttal, guys. So get it done or get going.
Get it done or get going. Absolutely. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Monday evening. We want to hear your guys' reactions, what you think about what Lorenzo Alexander said from what Lake Lewis with ownership and Cam Curl and his future. We'd love to hear from you guys. Always appreciate the feedback that you guys give us. We will see you again on Thursday. I'm Kyle.
I'm filling in for Mike Reed.
Yeah, apparently. Did it again. It's all right. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. Seriously, thank you to Lorenzo Alexander and Lake Lewis. That was such a fantastic episode they provided for us. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. Washington football. Woo!
Peace.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!